In 2009, I had at that point spent 4.5 years selling heating and air conditioning. That was my way of life at that time in my life. I sold at the retail level for a little while. I sold at the distributor level for a little while. And those 4.5 years, 5 years, my life felt empty. I did well, it was fine, but I just felt empty. I had this longing in my heart to do something greater. You ever have that longing? Man, there's something in my life I know I've got to do. God has something planned for me, and it's greater than what I'm doing now. So Dawn and I sat down, and we prayed that God would open some kind of door for us. And prior to my heating and air conditioning days, I was a full-time minister for 6 years at a church in Salem, and I enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. And in 2009, then, after being 4.5 years out of the ministry, I desired to return to those days again. I wanted to lead a community of believers to become better followers of Jesus Christ. I just had that desire. So Dawn and I prayed that God would lead us back into full-time ministry somewhere. Only it seemed as if God weren't opening any doors. All the doors seem to be closed. You ever have that feeling? What am I going to do next, right? Well, I got this bright idea. I was going to join the Army. Remember this, Dawn? I was going to join the Army. At 34 years of age, I was going to join the Army. So Dawn and I drove up to Youngstown into the recruiting station. I sat down with a recruiter up there in March of 2009, very apprehensively, because we knew if I joined the Army, that meant I was going to be away from my wife and my 2 young children at the time, for boot camp and training, and then who knows how many deployments I would go on and that kind of thing. So we knew this was going to be a big decision, but I still had this longing to do something really great with my life. I wanted to do something great, something special. And so I thought I could join the Army and work my way up to become an Army chaplain, and I could change lives on the battlefield. Yeah, that was my dream. Okay, I'm going to change lives on the battlefield because well, after sitting down with the recruiter, it was apparent then, even though I was 34 years of age, they were coming after me. They wanted me to join the Army. I'm like, okay, this is weird. But Dawn and I went home and we prayed, Lord, if this is what you want for me, here's what has to happen. We laid the fleece out, so to speak, before God, and we said, okay, if we're going to join the Army, I've got to be cleared to be an officer. I'm not going in at any lower rank. I'm going to come in at least a second lieutenant or something as an officer in the Army. We laid that fleece out there. But if you don't want me to go in the Army, Lord, then open a door. We prayed that, open a door. So no ministry opportunities came along during this time. I continued to enroll in the Army. I went to MEPS in Cleveland. Not a fun experience, those of you who've been through it. But I went there for physical testing, IQ testing. I did well on my physical part, did exceptionally well on the IQ part, scored one of the highest scores among the recruits that day. And so everything went well. In May of 2009, my recruiter scheduled an interview because I still had to be cleared to be an officer in the Army. So my recruiter schedules this interview in Cleveland again with some captains of the Army. I had to sit down with these people and interview with them to find out what my goals and dreams were, of course. And so there were 4 of these captains of the Army, probably the most nerve-wracking interview I've ever been in. Pretty crazy. We go through the interview. After the interview, my recruiter and I were sitting in this waiting room for what seemed like hours, and finally one of the captains came out, and she shakes my hand, and she says, man, Jeremy, you had a really great interview. We're impressed with what you had to say. Congratulations, you've been cleared to be an officer in the Army. I gulped a little bit. Reality is setting in, because now I got to drive home to my wife and tell her I've been cleared, the fleece has been laid out, we're going into the Army. I was pretty nervous about that getting home. Little known to us, God was working behind the scenes. We had no idea what was going on. He was working behind the scenes, I think, to do something even greater. For the next few weeks after that interview, after being cleared, I kind of dragged my feet. You know, I was a little hesitant to do that final thing. All I had to do was call my recruiter, schedule a time to go up and swear in to be this Army officer. But I dragged my feet. And then one day, you know what? It just hit me. We sat down, Dawn and I sat down. We talked some more. We prayed some more. And we decided that it was time to make a decision. We couldn't wait any longer. So I called my recruiter. I told him I was ready to swear in. The very next day, I would wake up at 2:30 in the morning, drive to Youngstown, meet my recruiter. We'd get in the car together, drive to Cleveland, and by 6:30 a.m. I'd be swearing in to the Army. God had different plans. I went to bed pretty early that night. I'm dead asleep. The phone rings. Dawn brings me the phone. I said, "Who is it?" Jeff Hughes. For 5 years, my family and I have been attending Greenford Christian. I got some people from Greenford today. Hey guys, glad you're here. We've been attending Greenford Christian Church, a great church. Church at that time was about 1,200 people, and we were very involved. Dawn was volunteering in the children's ministry. I was on the worship teams, singing, if you can believe that. And we were very involved. I got close with a lot of people at the church. I got close with the minister, Jeff Hughes, and it was he who was on the phone that night. And here's how the conversation goes. "Jeremy, this is Jeff Hughes. What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, kind of embarrassingly and stammered, said, "Well, I'm heading to Cleveland. I'm going to swear into the Army." And I explained to him that this is my plan and I've got to do something. I've got to make a decision right now. Jeff's got a way with words. He simply said, "You're not going to do that." He always had a way with words with me. It was really, really fun. And I said, "Well, no, I really have to do this, Jeff. I've got to do something. We got bills to pay. I've got to do something. I want to do something great with my life. This is what I've got to do." He says, "Nope, you're not going to do any of that. God has bigger plans for you. We want to hire you to be a campus minister for one of our satellite congregations in Hanoverton." We lived close to Hanoverton at the time in Ohio. And I said, "Okay, that's interesting." So I had no idea that this was even going on. God was working behind the scenes. Needless to say, the very next day, instead of going to Cleveland to swear in as an officer in the Army, I was driving to Greenford Christian Church to sit down with Jeff Hughes to return to full-time ministry. And I'm telling you, it has changed our lives. God had moved in the 11th hour, and we were back to church. We were back to church, back to where God called us to be. Now, why do I tell you the story? I want to tell you a couple of reasons. God has called every single one of us to do something great. God has called every single one of us to be something great. Do you believe that? God has called us, every single one of us, to a single mission: to change lives on the battlefield. Not in a war or anything like that, but the battlefield between us and the devil and his demons. The Klein family mission is the same as the First Church mission, and it is this. Write this in your message notes, in your bulletins, and that is to become disciples of Jesus who make disciples of Jesus. That's our life mission. Can we say that out loud? To become disciples of Jesus who make disciples of Jesus. Now, one more time like you mean it, okay? Ready? Here we go. To become disciples of Jesus who make disciples of Jesus. What's a disciple? A disciple's a learner. The word comes from the Greek word meaning learner, someone who learns. So we are to sit at the feet of Jesus and learn from him how to live our lives. And then we are to teach others how to do that as well. That's our life mission. I made the decision at that time in 2009 to become a campus minister for the Greenford Christian Church for that very reason, to make disciples. We made the decision to come here to Barberton because God was saying, "Jeremy, we need you to make disciples who make disciples." And so we made these decisions for the grand mission of seeing people's lives transformed for Jesus Christ. We want to see marriages put back together. We want to see people overcome addictions. We want to see people fully surrendering their lives to Jesus Christ and diving in and saying, "Yeah, this is the way to go." That is our mission. my family mission and our church family mission to see those types of things happen. So over the next few weeks, starting a new message series today, we're going to come back to church. We're going to come back to church. And I don't mean that we're just going to start going to church again, or that we're going to go to church more often or anything like that. That's part of it. I would love to see more commitment of people coming to church every week. But what I mean is that we're going to come back to the church that God intended her to be. A family of believers on a mission to help people transform their lives for Jesus Christ. That's what we want. Every single one of you is a champion for Jesus Christ. You are. God is using you to do great things. He's made you a warrior in his battle to be and to do something great on this battlefield we call earth. But for many, it takes sacrifice. We give up a lot to dive in to this thing called Christianity. Listen to the words of Jesus from Mark chapter 8. Jesus calls the crowd to him, and he tells them and his disciples, he says, if anyone would come after me, he must what? Deny himself. We like to posture and be better than other people, and make, we like to look good in front of people, but we're supposed to deny all that and take up his cross and follow me. Whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it. What's this look like? What does this mean? A life transformed for Jesus Christ looks like this. It's every single one of us taking Jesus' cross into the community. It's taking Jesus' cross into our workplaces and into our homes, into our bedrooms and living rooms and dining rooms. It's taking Jesus' cross onto our dates, into the music we listen to, into the movies we watch and the shows we're watching on television. It's taking Jesus' cross every place that we go. Jesus didn't call us to become partial followers. He didn't call us to come to church and gaze upon this beautiful cross and say, yeah, there it is, and then go home and leave it here. We don't take the cross with us from church and go into our home and prop it up in a corner of the living room and say, yep, there it is, and then leave it at home. No, it goes with us everywhere we go. We take Jesus with us everywhere we go. That's being a fully devoted follower of Jesus Christ. That we take him wherever we go. So we've got to get back to church. We've got to get back to church. And some of you might be thinking, yeah, we do, Jeremy. Amen. We got to get back to church. We got to get back to the good old days of hellfire and brimstone expository preaching. Come on now. Yeah, Jeremy, we got to get back to church. We got to get back to preaching or Greek classes. We got to get back to wearing suits and ties and singing out of the hymnals again. We got to get back to church. But that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting back to the church that God intended her to be. And that is much deeper than what we wear and what we sing and what classes we take and what I preach. Getting back to church goes deeper than the style of music we sing on Sunday morning, or what you wear to church, or what kind of sermons I preach, or what kind of classes we offer. Those things are important to talk about and make decisions on, but those things are secondary. Those things are secondary. They're not important. What's important is when we enter this room, that we sit at the feet of Jesus Christ and hear what he has to say. That's it. What does God have in mind? What does God have in mind? God, again, he paints this beautiful picture of the church in Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47. Let's read that. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. You need to underline the next word. Verse 43, what's that word? Everyone was filled with awe. Not just the few people sitting down here in the front rows. Everyone was filled with awe. Everyone walked in expecting God to do something great expecting God to move and to change lives. Everyone was filled with awe. Many wonders and miraculous signs were being done by the apostles. Underline the next word. What's that say? All the believers were together. And they had, what's the next word? You need to underline that one too. Everything in common. Selling their possessions and goods they gave to anyone as he had need. You need to underline the next two words. What is that? Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. One day a week wasn't enough for them. Some of you think, man, I go to church once a month. That's enough for me. No, the very first church, they wanted to be together. They had this desire to be together every day. So they broke bread in their homes. They ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of, underline that next word, what is it? All the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. I didn't see anybody underline anything. You need to go back and underline those words. Everyone, everything, all. You need to underline those words. I'm serious, because we think it's just for a select few. Only a select few get to experience the presence of God. Only a select few get to experience Jesus. No, everyone. And every day, someone came to know Jesus Christ. Someone's life was transformed by the power of the good news of Jesus Christ. Every day that he died on a cross, was buried, and rose from the grave. Every day someone came to know that. And the church wasn't, back then, they weren't partially devoted to God. They were fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ, and they went beyond their comfortable lifestyles and the way they did life, and they expected God to do something great within them and outside them. And God used the church in the first century to transform their community, to do something great in their community. How do we get back to church? How do we get back to that kind of church? How do we get back to the type of church that God uses to transform its own members' lives and the lives in our community? How do we get back to that kind of church? The vision that the church had in Acts chapter 2, some 2,000 years ago, is the same vision that I and our leadership and a lot of our members in this congregation have today for our church in 2015. Write this in your notes. Here we go. Dive in. First Church is a church where everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. Let's say that together. Everyone is welcome. One more time. Everyone is welcome. Do you believe it? Some of you need to circle that word, everyone. I think it's easy to say, but to really practice it and believe it, I don't know. I think we might have other opinions. I think the church subconsciously defines who can come in and who can't come in. We subconsciously make these rules. Everyone is welcome as long as they conform to our rules and standards. Everyone is welcome as long as they speak the same language or carry a Bible or wear the right clothing. How many of you noticed our guitar player is wearing shorts this morning? And some of you were more concerned about him wearing shorts than about what Jesus was trying to tell you through the songs we were singing. Jesus has something to say to you this morning. Everyone is welcome here as long as his hair is cut and his beard is shaved and he's not sporting any tattoos or earrings or other kinds of rings. Everyone is welcome here as long as she looks prim and proper and remains quiet and doesn't stir the pot. We say everyone is welcome, but I don't know that we believe it. Subconsciously, we make these rules and standards. Why? Revelation 22:17. The Spirit and the bride. Who's the bride? You got it. The church. They say, come. And let him who hears say, come. Whoever, you need to underline that word, whoever, because that means everyone. Whoever is thirsty, let him come. Underline the next word. Whoever wishes let him take the free gift of the water of life. What's the standard? Whoever. A couple of weeks ago, I took a day out of the office for some time alone with God. I try to do this about once a month. And I go out and I meditate on some scripture. I like water, so I go by a lake or something like that. I take some scripture along, I take a couple books, I pray to God, I try to listen to what God might have to say. As I'm sitting there, it was toward the end of the day, a man came up to me, or didn't come up to me, he came up beside me and he started fishing where I was. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool, you know, and I continued to meditate and listen. And he turned around to me and he said, what are you doing? You know, as if you do what I do for a living, you don't let it slip too much, because once people find out you're a preacher, they kind of put the wall up and, you know, then there's nothing. So, you know, I was very careful what I said next. And I said, well, I'm spending some time with God. And I let it slip. I'm a pastor. He kind of smiled and he says, oh, that's cool, man. He says, well, I'm a pretty strong Christian. He says, I have a strong faith in God, and he said, I have a hard time fitting into churches because of the way I look. And I looked at him, and it didn't hit me until, he said that, so I gave him a second look. I noticed he had long hair, he had this kind of scraggly beard, and he wore the kind of disheveled clothing. I could tell he probably didn't have a whole lot of money, in his possession. So he talked, though, of how much he loved God and just wanted to do his will. But the church wouldn't accept him because of the way he looked. How sad is that? How sad is that? He needs Jesus as much as you and I do. In fact, if we feel like that about somebody like that, we probably need Jesus more than he does. You know? I want to tell you, if you feel like that man this morning, you're sitting in our congregation and you feel like that man, I want to say this to you. Jesus is telling you, man, you're welcome here. It doesn't matter the pain. It doesn't matter what you're going through in life. It doesn't matter the hurt. It doesn't matter the clothes you wear. It doesn't matter the financial position you're in. It doesn't matter what you're going through life. It doesn't even matter that you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. We welcome you. You are welcome at First Church. I am glad you're here. Oh, man. Yeah, we'll talk about that one. But if you're a member here, you're not like that man. You feel confident in who you are and feel accepted. Here's what we need from you. We need you to welcome people. We need you to welcome your friends and your family members and your coworkers. We need you to welcome people who don't know Jesus. We need you to welcome people who don't have a home church. And I don't just mean on Sunday mornings, but as you go and walk about your daily lives, to accept people where they are right now and love them into a relationship with Jesus Christ. We need you to welcome people. Now, September 20th is National Back to Church Sunday. It's coming. I want to see this place full of people. And so here's what we're doing. In your bulletins this morning, you'll find some invitation cards. Let me see. Hold them up high. Do you guys have them? Good. You should have gotten, I think, 4 of them. And they're perforated, so you can take them. I want to challenge you to hand these out to some people that you know need to come back to church. Invite someone you know to come to church on Sunday, September 20th. And I want to challenge you to invite people that you know maybe they don't belong, but they need Jesus. Invite them back to church. To help you even further, in your message notes, it says that you should write down the names of 3 people you need to invite to church. So I'm helping you even further. Write those names down. 3 people that you need to invite to church. Here's what we need you to do. We need you to pray for those 3 people. Pray that God would give you an opportunity to see them, to hand them one of these cards. And by the way, we give you an extra 1 card, so you can use for somebody else. But pray for these people, right? And pray for them and invite them to church using the invite cards. And if you don't want to wait till September 20th, that's even better. Get them to come next week, with all these Sundays leading up, all right? Sweet. Screen's out. I'm not sure what to do about that one. We'll get somebody up there. We lost the connection somehow. But let's continue. Getting back to church means that we become a family of believers that welcome people from all walks of life. And when people feel welcome in a church, God will begin to transform our church and our community. Things will be different and it'll look better, okay? So we need to be a church. First Church is a church where everyone is welcome. Second is this. First Church is a church where everyone is needed. Fill in the blank with needed. Oh, it sounds like the computer restarted. Those darned updates from Microsoft. First Church is a church where everyone is needed. I don't think we celebrate enough the people who help in our church, the people who keep the wheels turning in our church. I don't think we celebrate that enough. So here's what I want to do. I don't see Thelma. Thelma Cooper is one who she writes cards. Some of you gotten cards. We've been missing you. She writes cards almost every week to the people that have been missing a few Sundays and just to encourage them to come back to church. Tony Supple, every week, unlocks the church building. He's here before I am. And I think that's great. Ethel Supple, his wife, comes in every week. She cleans up the pews. And here's the cool thing. She's also praying for you. As she goes through the pews, she's praying that God would inspire you this coming Sunday to do something great, whatever. John Cherok, I love you, man. He is here. Thank you. He's here almost every day of the week, stopping by the church. I think it's maybe because Mary kicks him out of the house. Is that it? Okay. But anyway, he stops in almost every day of the week to make sure the facilities are in working order, and it's really cool to see. And he stops and he talks with Becky for a little while and make sure she's doing all right. So that's a pretty cool thing. Our Sunday school teachers, Gary Cooper, Bob Quinlan, Chuck Rector, Bob Moorhead, Janet Rector, Marlene White, Joe Lookaball, probably others I can't recall, Ken Stefanko. We have Sunday school teachers almost every Sunday. They're getting things ready for you and organized, and they're teaching Sunday school every week. Tracy Marsh leads a men's group every Monday night. Sandy Collier and Becky Byers, they lead a women's Bible study every Monday night. And it's awesome. We have a whole team of deaconesses who prepare this so we can gather around the table and have a time of communion with our Lord and Savior. Our deaconess is awesome. And some of their husbands come. It's been cool. I've seen Dan nod up here, and it's working again. Good. So very good. We have a team of volunteers on our projector. Becky and a few others, about 4 others, are on our projector making sure that goes. We have video crews who shoot the video that go online so you can watch it if you miss on a Sunday. We have Lisa Howe and our praise team, Howard and Tom and Mitch and Bonnie and Angie, and who am I missing? Anybody? Sometimes Ken. Ken hasn't been there for a while, but we have a whole praise team who every week are picking out songs. This is a lot of work. I used to lead worship in a church a long time ago, picking out songs that are hopefully leading us into the presence of Jesus Christ, to worship Him, to bow down at Him, and they're picking these songs out, making sure they're played in a way that bring us into the presence of Jesus Christ. Excellent job they do. Let me do this. I've said a lot of people's names. If I said your name or if I said your group, would you stand up? You're a volunteer. Just stand up where you are. Keep standing. Keep standing. Now, here's what I want to do, too. If I didn't mention your name and you do something in our church, I apologize for not mentioning your name, but would you keep standing up? Would you also stand up? If I didn't mention your name, but you do something like Dawn, yeah, sorry, my own wife. I apologize. Look around you. These are the... What'd I miss? Huh? Tom? Hi, Tom. Keep standing up. I don't want you to sit down yet. Keep standing up. Look at the people around you. These are the people that help keep our wheels turning. Let me say this. We need you. I thought we'd get applause or something. Thank you so much. Go ahead and have a seat. If you were sitting, you can go have a seat. If you were sitting, if you did not stand, I want to say this to you as well. We need you as well. Everyone is important. in the work of Jesus Christ. We need you. You are needed here. There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but the same God works all of them in all men. God has given each one of you gifts and talents to use for Him, to see lives transformed for Jesus Christ. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. The head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. The family of First Church of Christ needs every single one of you. When God looks at First Church, He sees a body working together. He sees that some of you are heads, and some of you are hands, and some of you are feet, and some of you are elbows, and some of you are butts. A lot of times we're all butts. But God needs you. God needs you, and we need you to use your gifts and talents. Let me give you the last one, and it's this. First Church is a church where everyone is transformed. First Church is a church where everyone is transformed. I know we have people in this very room who have been transformed by the grace of Jesus Christ. We do have people in our congregation that have overcome drug addictions. We have people in our congregation that have been healed. We have people in our congregation that have saved marriages, that have reconciled relationships, that have found forgiveness. Most of you, if not all of you, have been saved from the fiery pits of hell. Your life, that's a transformation in itself, and that's amazing. And the goal I have, one of the goals I have every week when we walk into these doors every Sunday morning is that everyone leaves a little bit better. That's what I want to see. That we are transformed. Paul challenges us in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. He says, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be what? Be transformed. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. You want to know God's will? Allow Jesus Christ to transform you into the person He wants you to be. When we enter this room, right here, when we come into this place, we enter God's presence and we sit at His feet so that He can transform us into the church that He wants us to be. It's not about what we look like. It's not about how many Greek words I can throw out at you. It's not about the style of music, what we wear. The only question we need to ask ourselves when we come in these doors every Sunday morning, the only question we need to ask is, God, what do you want to say to me today? That's it. Can we get back to church? I got one yes. We'll start a new church then. Can we get back to church? There we go. Can we get back to a church where everyone really is welcomed, where everyone is needed, where everyone is transformed for Jesus Christ? Can we get so focused on our mission to make disciples of Jesus who make disciples of Jesus that we don't get consumed with what someone is wearing on the stage? Can we just get so focused on our mission that we don't worry about how loud the music is, that we don't worry about where we're going after lunch today, but that we come into this room and we say, Lord, what do you have to say to me today? That's the type of church God wants. I want to give you one last question. I don't know, just write this in your notes. And I'm praying for you. I'm praying that it keeps you up at night. And I'm praying that it haunts you day by day. Here's the question. Will you give your life to the mission of Jesus Christ to change lives on this battlefield?